Now let's see how we can get an Excel output from our quantity schedules in Revit. Probably you already know about the method. The Revit itself has the option, so you can get an Excel output from your quantity schedules in Revit without using any plugins or any mediator. First, you open the schedule you want to get an export from. Then in File section, you choose Export. And down there from Report section, you choose a schedule. When you choose it, in Files of Type, you have two formats. One of them is text and the other is CSV. Let me first explain these two formats. See, up to 2021 version, we only had text format. It means you only could export a text file of your quantity schedules. But from 2022 version onwards, the CSV format is also added. See, if I open 2021 version of Revit, as you see, this is a quantity schedule. If I come to Export section and then choose a schedule, as you see, the only option that I have is text format. I don't have CSV, so this is added from the version 2022 onwards. Let me open 2022 version, and from File section, in Export section, I choose Schedule. As you see, I also have CSV format here. In 2022 and higher versions, we also have the CSV format as well. That's much better than text, and we'll talk about it. Let's analyze these two methods in 2024 version of Revit. In the schedule section, I first use the text format to export my file. And let's skip the name. We don't change it. No difference. And then I save it. Here, there are some settings to adjust. It asks if you want to export the title. It means the title that we have up there, the red one. You can tick it off if you don't want that. The next one asks if you want to export the headers as well. And I keep this one, I don't tick it off. The next one asks if you want to also export the groups, like A, B, C, D. And I tick off this one, I don't want it. The fourth one asks if you want to export group headers, footers, and blank lines. We don't have blank line here. For example, from this section, I can add a blank line. And now you can decide if you want to export the blank line as well when you are exporting your file. Okay, I come here again and I replace this. So these options are clear. You can try them yourself. Here there is an option called Output. And it asks on what basis these are divided. Based on tab, space, comma. These columns here are called tabs. So our data is divided by tabs. So I choose the tab option. There is also a text qualifier here that you can set up. For example, I set it on comma. This is exactly what we had in Excel. Do you remember when we wanted to divide the text? So we wondered what are the options to split those texts. This is the same. Here I click on OK, and as you see, I have a text file. And in fact, this quantity schedule of mine has been exported. As you see, we also have commas here, based on the text qualifier section. Now I open Excel. I open it, and from this section, I choose Open. And here, I set it on all files. And here I choose my text file. Here again you have several options. Here it asks how these are divided. And I just talked with you about it. For example, here we have they are divided by commas, tabs. How is it? And we set it on delimited because they are divided by tabs. As you remember, when we're exporting in Revit, we set it on tabs. If you choose fixed width, you have to divide them yourself. Here it says when I want to import your file, from which row should I start? You can set it yourself and it's not really important. I click on next and then here, and I click on tab to specify that these are divided by tabs. The same as when I was exporting, I chose tabs. As you see here, it shows the preview to me. And that's correct. As you see, these are divided by tabs. We have sheet number, sheet sort, and sheet group. Next one, here it asks what is the format of these, and I can choose text or general. And then I click on finish. When I finish it, it gives me this schedule. And then I choose these columns and I double click. What are these commas for? That's for this section. It was when I came here and set up these settings for the output. Let me do it once again. It was on CSV format. Here I choose text. I rename this. Here I set it on comma. I can also set it on none. When I choose none and then come here and open my file, you can see here that the commas are gone. That's something you can set. Now I here do it again. Another schedule. I choose open to review what we just did. I import this file. I know that these are based on tabs, so I keep it on delimited. And I'll here also choose my data as headers. Next one, it's on tab. I set my text qualifiers on none. Next one, I set the format on general or text. And then I finish it. I don't have commas here anymore. And here I double click to organize these. So this is the schedule that we import its text file. And then as a result, we can have such a thing in Excel. Now we can fix its appearance by ourselves. That's something we can do ourselves. So that's the first method. You export your quantity schedule as a text file and then import that text file in Excel. But as I said, from 2022 versions onward, we can use CSV format to export our quantity schedule. Let's try this too. See, CSV format is much better than text format. In fact, it's more intelligent. We're going to talk about it now. Here, I choose CSV format to export my file. It asks to replace, but I changed the name. For example, 2. Here again, you have all these settings and you can set them up. I set this one on tab and the other on none. I click on OK and now I have a CSV file. See, I have a file in CSV format. Now I come to Excel and from Data tab, I choose from a text CSV so that I can import my CSV file. Here I choose my file and click on Import. Okay, so can you see it shows me a table here? And you can see from the preview that it's much more organized. Here the delimiter is on tab. We don't have much to do with this section. You don't have to change its settings. Here you have two options. One is load and the other load to. I will explain both. First, we choose load. And now as you see, what happened? Our file is imported in Excel as a table. Can you see we have a table here? As we discussed in season 1, if you have a table in Excel, it's much easier for you. It's much smarter and you can do some calculations and things like that. much more easily with a table. For example, if you want to filter, calculate, or sort out something, it's much easier through a table. As we saw in Season 1, using formulas are much easier in a table because tables are smart. So CSV is much better than text. And as you see, its graphic and its appearance is much better. So as you see, you have a table here. You can modify its style, and that can be much more organized. Now here you can also convert this to a table. I mean, it's not so hard. You can drag this upwards, and then here I choose Format as Table, like this. But why bother if it can itself import it as a table? And it's more organized, so I can use this one. So these are two ways by which we can use Revit without using any other plugins to export our quantity schedule and then import them in Excel. As you saw, CSV format is better than text, and it's much smarter and it's neater. So you can use CSV format if you want to export your files. Just keep in mind that you have the ability to do that in version 2022 and higher versions. So in lower versions, you have to import your text file and then change its appearance yourself. When we were importing our CSV file, we had two options. One was load and the other load to. Let's try the other one. Here I choose from text and CSV, and then choose my file. And here, instead of choosing load, I choose load to. When you choose this option, it allows you to import the data in your CSV file as a table or pivot table, pivot chart, and things like that. So you have the right to choose. You can choose pivot table. In previous season, we talked about pivot table. You can import your file through different formats, and also here it asks you if you want to have a new worksheet, or else you want to import your file in this existing worksheet. You can also choose the range and say import my file here. You have these options if you choose load to. For example, I choose table and then I ask it to import it here. You can see the result here. So if you choose load to, it gives you more options. I also can come here and import my table in a new worksheet and as pivot table. I come here, I create a new worksheet, and then I import it as pivot table. And I also can come here and add columns and things like that. And here I also can make some extra changes to my table. So that's the difference between load and load to. So up to here, we learned that using Revit, how we can export our quantity schedules from Revit to Excel. We had two ways. One was to export with a text format, and we have the option in all Revit versions. And then you have to import the text file in Excel. And the other one is CSV format, that we have it in 2022 versions and the higher versions. And then you can get a CSV output and import your CSV file in Excel. And that's better than text file. And I want to talk about SheetLink plugin. SheetLink is one of the plugins of the D-Roots company. It is a very powerful plugin. It has this wide range of usage. And in fact, it is a kind of linking bridge between the Revit application and other applications that deal with the statistics like Google Sheet or Excel. Using SheetLink, you can have a direct relation between your file in Revit and Excel. Now, we don't talk about Google Sheet because our focus is on Excel and its relation with other BIM applications. SheetLink is a very useful application, and I can say that it is one of the strongest, it is maybe the strongest application that exists for linking Excel with Revit. It is even much more powerful than TableGen plugin. Now, in the process of learning, I will show you the differences between these two plugins and how the features of this plugin can really help you. Okay, from this Root 1 section, you have SheetLink plugin, and I open it here to analyze this plugin together. In last session, we talked about exporting the quantity schedules to Excel. And to do it, we used the Revit's default method. Now, using this plugin, you can export your quantity schedules and link it directly to Excel. But as you probably can see here, the Schedule tab is one of the tabs of this plugin. And this plugin generally deals with Excel. So we are going to analyze this plugin completely together, especially those part that deals with Excel much more. And then we also exclusively talk about Schedule tab and exporting the quantity schedules through this plugin. Now let's talk about the first tab. We have these model categories. What is model categories? It includes all the 3D categories of your project, like floor, furniture, ceilings. These are called model categories. We also have it in the VG part of Revit in visible graphics palette. And annotations are two-dimensional categories, like tags, elevations, and grid heads. These are annotation categories, two-dimensional categories and elements. Now, these two tabs are really similar to each other. Now, when we analyze the features of one of these tabs, it is also true for the other. They are similar. Now, what can you do here? You can export an output, Excel output or Google Sheet output from the chosen parameters of your different categories. As I said, this plugin gives you two kinds of output, Excel or Google Sheet. But now we're dealing with Excel. You can come here and choose a category, and then choose a few parameters in it, and I export an Excel output from these parameters that you have chosen. Now, what is the interesting point? It is that not only you can have a direct output of these parameters that you have chosen in Excel, but also you can change some of the amounts and quantities of these chosen parameters. And then again, import your schedule in the project. And the interesting point is that those changes that you have made are actually made into your project at the end. Maybe now you're asking, so what was the function of TableGen plugin? That was exactly the same. We would import an Excel file, would make some changes to the data of that Excel file, and then we would import our file again, and then we would update it and could see those changes in Revit as well. Now, there is a point here. When you import your schedule from TableGen plugin and then update it, those things that you have changed in that schedule are not really changed in your project as well. Now, let me give you an example. Imagine you're now dealing with the Excel table that is about the parameters of some doors, and then you change the height of a door from 2 meters to 2 meters and 10 centimeters. And then you import your schedule, your table in TableGen plugin, and then you update it. Now imagine you have imported your schedule as schedule view in your project. Now that amount that you have changed to 2 and 10 centimeters in Revit is also have changed to 2 and 10 centimeters. But the truth is, the change that you have made has not really been made into your project. In your project, the height of the door is still 2 meters. In fact, you only can make changes into your schedule or your table, not in your project. It will not affect your project or your parameters. You must pay attention to this point. Through TableGen, you can make some changes and then import your files again. But don't expect those changes to be really made in your project as well. This will not happen, but in SheetLink plugin, this will happen. If you export the height of a door and then change its height in Excel and then import it again, the height of that door really changes in your project as well. This is really important. You have to pay attention to it. This is when you really realize the power of this plugin, that how directly a relation it can create between Excel and Revit. Now let's have example that we can get introduced to the atmosphere of the plugin and then to realize better these points that I just talked about. See, you can choose some categories here. But before that, I have to tell you there are 3 options here: Whole Model, Active View, and Current Selection. Whole Model shows you all the categories that exist in this project, and you can select from it. Active View shows you those features, those categories that are open at the time. Like here, this 3D model of mine is Active View. If I choose Active View, it shows me the categories that are now in the view that I am working on. Can you see its number has also changed? Let me choose Whole Model again. You see there are more here. What is Current Selection? Imagine you have chosen several things here. For example, you can come here and choose Current Selection, and then it only shows you the categories of that selected part. You can choose from it, you can select your parameters, and then have an output from those parameters that you have selected. Now I set it on Whole Model. I don't have anything to do with it for now. I choose Whole Model and it shows me all the categories. For example, the doors. I want to export some of the parameters related to the doors and then see them in Excel. I choose it here, and as soon as you choose your category here, in this section that is called Available Parameters, it shows you the parameters related to this category. For example, here, the door category has these parameters. Now, what is the point of these colors? Why some of them are yellow, some of them are red? See this section down here. We have 3 parameters here. We have 3 groups of parameters. Instant parameters, that are those that are in properties. Type parameters that are in edit type or type properties. And then also we have read-only parameters that are those that we cannot change. We cannot make change into them. Why? Because that parameter itself is dependent on another parameter. In fact, it gets its data, its amount from other parameters. And that parameter is either type or instance. In fact, read-only parameters are depending on a type or instance parameter. And so they get their data from those parameters. So you cannot make changes into them. Let me give you an example. For example, here we have an assembly description that is among read-only parameters. Here, the green ones are instance parameters, the yellow ones are type parameters, and the red ones are read-only. So here, assembly description is a read-only parameter. When I stay on this parameter, pay close attention to this second line, that is parameter type. What is its parameter type? It is type. What does it mean? It means this read-only parameter is depending on a type parameter. Now let's take a look. I come here in project, and then as an example, I choose this door. And then I come to its edit type. It said that its type is type, right? I scroll down, and here you can see that we have assembly description. It is inactive, you cannot change it. Can you see? All of these are read-only parameters. So you cannot change the data, you cannot change its numbers. We have it also in properties. For example, in design options. See, this is inactive, you cannot change it. Now let's get back to the SheetLink plugin. So now we have to have it design option here as well. Can you see? We have also this design option here that is a read-only parameter. So read-only parameters are those parameters that are depending on a type or instance parameter. Now here we learned that which color is related to which parameter. Now you can sort them out. Now if I click on instance here, it shows those instance parameters of mine at first. Then I have type parameters and then read-only parameters. If I click on type, it shows those type parameters first and so on. That's it. So here we can sort it out as well. We determine which parameters come first. Here, if you open this list, you can filter them out as well. For example, you can determine to just see the type parameters. You take it off and then only see the type parameters here. Now there is a point here. Imagine here I tick on all my parameters and then I say sort it out based on read-only. It means that read-only parameters come first. Take a look at the number of read-only parameters and try to remember how many they are. I come here and then I tick off my instance parameter so that it only shows me. So when I come back, as you see, we don't have instance parameters anymore. But the number of my read-only parameters have also decreased. Can you guess why? Exactly, because some of my read-only parameters were depending on an instance parameter. And when you say you don't want to see your instance parameters, those read-only parameters that are depending on instance parameters are also removed. Now, if I stand on each of these parameters, their parameter type is type. Can you see? All of them are type. We don't have an instance here. Now I change it. I tick off type and I tick on instance. Can you see the change? Now if I stand on each of them, we see that this parameter type is instance. So pay attention to this part. When you are filtering out, when you see that the numbers of your reader-only parameters are increasing and decreasing, that's because of this issue. Because these parameters are dependent. For now, I tick on all of them. And then I ask it to sort it out based on their type. First type, then instance, and then read-only. Now you can select those parameters that you want from these parameters that are available for this category. Now what I want to select from the parameters related to my doors, for example, in type properties, I want to see the height, the width, and from instance parameters, and then I say from instance parameters I want seal height. If you also agree, I choose a read-only parameter as well so that we can analyze it further. So I select assembly description as well. So you have two ways to choose them. One is that you can stay on them and double click on them so that they are added, or you can use these arrows. You can add them or remove them. For example, here I don't want category. I double click on it so it is removed, or else I click on one and then click on this arrow. Okay, let's once again enter them because they got mixed up. Okay, so I want width and height. Seal height and assembly descriptions, they were already there. So they have entered this section like that to the selected parameters section, those parameters that you have chosen. Here again we have this list. You can also filter things here. For example, we can tick off read-onlys. So if I tick it off, the assembly description is gone. We have this filtering here again. Now imagine in Excel you want your first column to be height, the second column width, and the third seal height, and then assembly description. If you want to change them like that, you have to use these arrows. These two change by one. For example, here the height is chosen because it's blue. That's it. Whatever that you choose is blue. Now I choose height. This one, take it up by one place, and this one down by one place. Now what about this? If you choose this, the chosen parameter goes to the bottom. Now if I choose the other, it goes up there. We also have reset. If you choose reset, those selected parameters are gone. If I choose reset here, I don't have anything anymore here. And this sorting out that I had here will go as well. So here again, I choose type. And then again, I choose these parameters. I had width, seal height, and assembly description. Again, I have these four parameters here. So up to now, I have chosen my needed parameters. Now, in the next session, we will talk about other things as well. All right, up to now, we chose those parameters that we wanted. Now we have several options here. One of them is this. If you choose this option, what does it do? It creates a 3D view for you, and here you yourself can choose your 3D views. For example, these are 3D views that are available for this project, and you can choose among them. After choosing this 3D view, it creates section box based on the 3D views that you have chosen in the project. For example, you have chosen the doors, and it creates a section box that all those chosen doors are there. It creates section box, and there is also this option, isolate selected elements. It says, now that I have created section box, do you want me to isolate it so that you only see them? Here you also can duplicate your selected views and have another one as well. I can also choose duplicate but say don't do it in my own 3D. I have a copy of it, so do it in there. The other option is not important that much. Here I don't choose isolate for now. I apply this and now there's a problem with my view name. For example, I change it to copy. I applied it and now it is creating a 3D view for me. Alright, I come here and as you see, it has created a 3D view for me. This was my whole project, and after this section box, I only have this part. So maybe this is not really useful just for the doors. So here you can come and choose isolate selections. And as you see, all the doors that had those parameters are isolated. And you can see them separately. So before creating that 3D, you can take this on so that it will isolate them for you. So you can choose these options as well. For now, I unisolate it. And again, here it shows me the project. Alright, so now my file is ready to be exported. But before exporting, we also have a very good option that can really help in checking out the project and choosing the parameters. It is in the Revit itself. Here we have this option, Preview Edit. And as you see, it is also in the last tab of this plugin as well. If I choose it, it takes me to a pseudo Excel environment that I can see a preview of those exported parameters. I also can make changes to the number and the data of the parameters as well. Let's see it together. I choose Preview Edit here. As you see, a schedule like Excel is open for me. In the last tab, that is like a table like in Excel. Here it also has different sheets. As you see, we can also add sheets. I don't suggest it. Now it's very good, but let's analyze its features. Some of the tools that were in the Excel, you have them also here. For example, here you can make these smaller, but like in Excel, you cannot double click so that you can resize them. It doesn't have all the tools that we have in Excel, but it has some tools that you can use. Okay, I sort out my schedule a little bit. So now let's analyze. The first thing that may seem strange to you is this element ID column. Let me come back to model category tab. You can see that we haven't chosen anything as element ID here so that it exported for us. So why do we have element ID here? When you want to export some parameters, SheetLink plugin by default sort them based on element ID, and it exports its characteristics for you. As you know, in Revit, each element has an ID. Each thing in Revit has an ID particular to itself. And SheetLink plugin shows those IDs to you as well. In fact, it set up your output based on those element IDs. And that's a default feature of SheetLink. You cannot change it. Now, each of these are one object. because its IDs are different. Each element has an ID that SheetLink is showing its features based on its IDs. Now, if you don't want to see this column, you have to right-click and then choose Hide. And then again, if you change your mind, you right-click again and choose Unhide. And if I drag this to the right, I have element ID again. So that is for element ID. Have in mind that in your output, this element ID column is always there. Now, this element ID is sometimes useful. For example, when you want to check your project, this element ID is really useful. For example, imagine that I have created this preview from what I want to export, and I want to check the project. As you see here, we again have some different colors. Those cells that are in yellow are related to type parameters. As we had on Model tab, those yellow parameters are related to type. The red ones are the read-only parameters. These white ones are the instant parameters. And if you saw the gray color, it means that these parameters that you have chosen are not available or are not existing for these elements. They are not active. These elements don't have these parameters in themselves. So whenever you saw the gray, it means that these parameters are not available for this element. Now here I am checking my project. Well, I don't know which door it is. I see it doesn't have height or width or seal height parameters. It only has assembly description. So that's the question, which door it is? Why doesn't it have anything? I can easily come here and right-click, copy the element ID, and from Manage tab, choose Select by ID. I paste it here, and then click on Show. Then it shows me the door. This ID is related to this door. Okay, now let's analyze this. As you see, this door here is a curtain wall door. And curtain wall doors don't have the width and height parameters. They don't even have seal height because you achieve this door by placing some grids. For example, you have made some grids here and in here for your curtain wall. And then instead of the panel of curtain wall, you have placed a door. In fact, that curtain wall door is depending on the distance between your grids. So you cannot define height and width for it. So this is reasonable that the parameters of width and height are gray in that box because they don't exist. It doesn't have seal height. Everything is depending on your grids. So here I realize that this is related to a curtain wall door. Probably all these gray ones here are curtain wall doors. Now let's go to this parameter. I want to see where this one is placed. I copy it again, and here from the Manage tab, let me exit my choice. Here I choose Select by ID. And then paste it here, then choose Show. This is the entrance door. That element ID of mine is related to this entrance door. So like that, you can check your project. If you have questions or you doubt something, this door or this element ID, why this parameter of it is gray, why is it unavailable, you can check them like that. Now for this door, imagine that, for example, I want to change its seal height. I don't want it to be 1. If you agree, before that, I want to choose its unit. I come here and then I change it to meter so that we can work with it more easily. And then I set the other one on 2 decimal places and then I choose OK. Now my measuring unit is meter, and as you see, its seal height is 30 centimeter. I get back to this schedule. I once again get a preview edit from this schedule. so that it gets updated. See, all of these have changed into meter. Let me sort it a little bit so you can see the whole schedule. Okay, now let's just consider this door. We want to change some of its parameters. Okay, let's start from type. For example, I want to change the height of this door from 2.7 to 3. For example, I have seen the door here and I want to, for any reason, change its height. What you so easily could do in Excel, you can do also here. For changing the amounts related to each cell, each of these is a cell, you click on it and then type whatever that you want. For example, here I typed 3. Alright, now this is 3. But nothing is yet changing my model. This door that I had, its height hasn't changed to 3. I only have changed this schedule of mine. To have these changes also on your project, you must choose Update Model from down here. I choose Update Model. This ribbon here gets filled up for me. And then there is this message that your model has been updated. Now let me check it. Here I choose this door. I go to this edit type and as you see, its height has been changed from 2.7 to 3. As easily as that. Can you see how powerful it is? And how easily you can make changes. This is a very useful plugin. Now for its instance. Because seal height is in the instance part, the white one, I don't want it to have seal height. I want it here to be 0. Here I type 0. Then again choose Update Model. There is a message. I choose OK. I choose the door and as you see, its seal height has changed to 0. As easily as that. So some changes that you have in mind, you can make into these parameters that we have here. Then choose Update Model. And those changes are also made in your model. One point, for read-only parameters here, you cannot make any changes. As we talked about it, the read-only parameters are all depending on another parameter, and you cannot make any changes here. You don't have the ability to change. You cannot even change it in the project. No matter how much I try, I cannot change anything here. So pay attention to this issue as well. Here we have an instruction sheet that includes some guidelines. For example, it says each color specifies something and things like that. Down here we have this option Reset Values. If you choose it, your schedule completely changes to the way it was at first. The appearance and the amounts all change. In fact, your parameters all change back to what they were. If I choose Reset Value here, as you see, its appearance has changed. And this height that I changed to 3 is again to 2.7. And the seal height that was 0 is again 30 centimeters. Everything changes into its first shape. If I choose this door here, it's still 0. Why? Because I didn't choose Update Model here. I only reset it. If I again want it to be done on my model, pay attention, my seal height is 0. I click on Update Model. And if I OK this, it changes into 30 centimeters, the number I have here. So through Reset Value, you can remove those changes you have made. And then you will have the thing that you got a preview from in the beginning. So that's the preview edit section that really helps you to check your project and also make some changes to the parameters that you have here. Now that we have discussed the preview section together, we want to export our file. We want to export an Excel file from the parameters that we have chosen. I get back to the model category section. These parameters are enough here. I want to export an Excel file from them. To export, you have to come down there and click on Export, and then a window is popped up for you. The first option is inactive for this Model Categories tab. This option only works for Schedules tab. It works when you want to export your quantity schedules. Well, we'll get to that and we'll talk about it. The next option is Clear. It wants to open your file after exporting. I choose it, it's okay. I keep it to be like that. Down here we have two options, Export to Excel and Export to Google. The left one is for Google Sheet and the right one is for Excel. We don't have anything to do with Google Sheet, we want to work with Excel. I choose Export to Excel here, and the option Open Excel file after export is also ticked on. After that, it will open the file for me. I choose Export here, and that's okay. It will save it on the desktop for me. When its job is done, it will open the file for me. Like that. Can you see? It says it's an Excel schedule, and it shows us all the parameters that we want. But pay attention, this is not a table. But if you want, you can convert it to table. So now I have this Excel schedule and it has exported those parameters that I wanted. Now here, based on the things that we talked about Excel in the first section, you can sort out things, you can filter things. For example, I come here and I say, okay, sort it out based on this. Okay, so whatever way that you think is better. You can customize your schedule whatever way that you want. Now imagine I want to change several things here. Okay, so for example, here I type seal height for these. I copy it and I drag it down. I change this one to 2 and the other one 3 as we talked about. And then I save this here. And then I come back to Revit. Now I want to have those changes. I have analyzed my schedule. Imagine I have sent a schedule for the employer and he has made some changes and some comments. I want to apply those comments on my project as well, so that those changes in parameters will be applied to that as well. To have your schedule here and update your model, from down here you choose Import. We have 3 options here. One is for Google Sheet. The first one says Import from Excel, that it takes your file from here and it imports it. It has a preview import here as well. If I click on it, it says choose your file and I say, well, that's my file, and when I open it, it gives me a preview here. In this preview, the things that are green are the things that I have changed. The figures that I have changed, you can easily see what you have changed. In this schedule, it's really smart. So I can easily see and check them. So I have changed these, and I have added this for these element IDs. Well, it gives me a preview, and if I were okay with it, and it was okay, I choose Update Model here. Well, this window that is popped up here is because these parameters that I have changed are groups. And then it asks me, do you want me to ignore those elements that are groups? I mean, ignore the changes that are made into them, or you want me to ungroup them so that then I can apply the parameter that you have given to me. Then I say, for example, ignore them. All right, I click on OK, and I wait for model to be updated. Here it says the model is updated, and I come here, I choose this door. If you remember, this ID is for this interior door. Let me try again. I copy this. I come to Manage section, and I click on Select by ID, and then I paste it here. And when I click on Show, it shows me the door. Okay, I come to Edit Type, and as you see, the height has changed to 3 and its width is 2, and I haven't changed its seal height. So like that, you can import your Excel file and apply those changes on it. Now let's come back to here. We have an import from Excel as well. This one doesn't offer you any preview. This one only imports and updates. For example, imagine I change this to 2.1 and I change its width to 1.5. Alright, and then I change its cell height to 0. I come here and I save this. And from import section, I choose import from Excel. I choose my Excel here and then I open it. It asks me all these because of the changes that I had made. I say skip it, you don't have to ungroup it. And this one imports the file directly and updates it. And it doesn't ask you if it's okay to update or not, or do you have second thoughts. So like that, it directly updates them for you. Now if I choose this again, you see that its cell height is 0, the door's width has changed to 1.5, and its height 2.1, and that's because the Excel file that I imported. So the difference between this option and the previous one is that it gives you a preview. You can see the changes. So if you want, you can update your model. And if you choose the first option, it directly updates your file when you choose it. It doesn't ask you anything. So like that, we can export our parameters as Excel file and check them. If the changes are necessary, we make the changes. And here, through these two options, we import and update our file. As easy as that. But let me tell you about the last point. It's about the preview and edit window palette. That is, in this palette or in this window, you also have this sorting and filtering option. The same tool that you have in Excel, you have it here. You can filter or sort it. You have some of Excel tools here, but they are just limited, you know. So that's the final point. See together some options from these tab 2 and then move on to the next tabs. See here, you have an option called Export by Type ID. What is Type ID? You probably haven't heard of it. We have heard a lot about element ID, and we know each element in Revit has an ID. It may be interesting for you to know that each type in Revit also has an ID. But by default, Revit doesn't give you an export of your type ID. It means you cannot see the type ID in Revit. But for example, by Dynamo, you can get the type of the ID of different types and see them. But Revit itself will not give you the export of the type ID. But SheetLink, like Dynamo, can give you exported type ID. What is type ID? Each type in Revit, each type of each element in Revit has a particular type ID. And SheetLink can export the type ID for you, like in Dynamo. Let's have an example. If I come here and choose Export by Type ID, as you see on this side, we don't have instance parameters anymore. Why? Because type ID is related to type, and it's not related to instance parameters. You probably have guessed that read-only parameters are also reduced because of that filter issue that we talked about. Those read-only parameters that are depending on instance parameters are also gone. So that's the point. If you choose Export by Type ID, the instance are removed, and those read-only parameters that are related to instance parameters are also not shown here. Okay, for example, in this project, we have different types for a door. I want to see width and height parameters here. I don't want assembly description. I send it to the left. I delete it. Just height and its width, that are its type parameters. If I choose preview here, I will not have element ID here anymore. So what do I have? Type ID. Now pay attention, another column is added here. The family and type name column. In fact, it is each type of the door that has its own special ID that is showing its particulars to you. For example, here, this is one type of the door. This is one type, and its edit type, it has width and height. So here, for this type, it is showing me its height and width. For example, the next one, as you see, its family and type name is different. So it has its own special type ID, and it also is showing me its height and width. It is not showing it to me based on elements. It's showing it to me based on type ID. Let me give you another example. Here I open a new project, another template metric, and SheetLink sends me a message saying that your active document has changed and asks me to reopen the plugin. Now imagine I want to create walls here. Here I say it is generic 30 centimeters. That's a type, right? And here I drag this. And then I choose it. I come to manage part and I want it to show me its ID. This is its ID. Alright. At the end it has 815. I choose this one, that's 853. And then I choose this one, it's 852. As you see, their element IDs are different from each other. But all these four walls, their type IDs are the same because they are all one type. Now here I copy this wall and rename it as 02. Alright, and here I create another wall. Okay, I choose this one as well. And here I rename it as W01. Now, can you tell me how many type IDs we have for the walls? Exactly, we have 2 type IDs. But we have 8 element IDs. Each of these has a different element ID. But these 4 walls have the same type ID. And these 4 walls are, again, having the same type ID. Now let's try it. I come to the roots. I open SheetLink. And then I specify that the wall category be based on type ID. I sort this one out too. For example, I say, show me the function, or I choose some other parameters randomly, and then I choose preview. Alright, how many type ID do I have? 2. Exactly what we calculated there. These have 1 type ID and those another one. We have 2 type IDs, right? Now these are not really important, and as you see, it also gives us the tab of family and type name. It says this type ID is related to the basic wall of W01, and the other type ID is related to the basic wall W02, and you can see them here. Now imagine I come here and I change its function. I want it to be interior instead of exterior. I must double click here for this list to be opened up to me, and I set it on interior. I change it. So I choose update model. Here it says that your model has been updated, and now let's check it. These were W01. Is that right? So if I go to its edit type, I see that its function has changed from exterior to interior. In fact, I have changed something for this type. Alright, so let me give you an example here. Imagine here I tick off export by type ID. When I choose preview here, I will have element ID. 8 element IDs. That's exactly what we calculated. Now here, for one of these element IDs, for one of these walls, I change its function. I double click on it, and I set it, for example, on foundation. For example, is that right? Here, I have changed a type parameter. When you change a type parameter, it will change for all those walls. Well, is that right? So here, if I choose update model, and come here, because all of these are one type, can you see its function has changed to foundation? But the problem is that you don't see it inside this schedule. It means that 4 of our valves, 4 of our element IDs function must be fountain. But you don't see it. You should yourself imagine that these are the 4 walls. And I'm not myself so sure, but I think that it's the 4 walls. You have to add it yourself like that. It doesn't change the schedule for you automatically. It will change in the project, but it will not change the schedule. Now, what you can do here, and that's very good, is to choose export by type ID here, so that it will show them based on type ID. And then when you change the function once, the function will change for the type of that valve in the schedule. In the project, it will change for the both cases, but in the schedule, when it is based on element ID, it will not change it for all of them. You have to do it yourself. So pay close attention to that too. Let me give you another point. In previous section, we have some information here. And this information is what, when you stay on a parameter, it will show them to you. See, the first one is name, that is fire rating here. It's parameter type that we talked about. For example, it is an instance or something else. Here it is type. One of them is data type, that shows the kind of type of the data. For example, it's a string or text. It is a text written. And the other one is parameter group. Now, what is a parameter group? Here it says its parameter group is identity data. In fact, the fire rating parameter involves its parameter group is identity data. Parameter group are these. This one was one of the type parameters. I choose this wall. Here, each of these blue ones is a parameter group. Do you remember identity data that was for parameter group? Can you see it's part of this group, part of the identity data group? These are called parameter groups. SheetLink plugin also shows you parameter groups. For example, here, the C column. Here it is telling me the name of the parameter. I have added the function parameter here. Here it is telling me its data type. For example, it's integer or string or text. Here it is telling me that this parameter is type, or it is instance. And in the last section, it is telling me its parameter group. It says function is placed in the parameter group of construction. Now let's check it together. Here, construction tab. And as you see, we have function here. So these things that you see here are related to the name of the parameter, type of data, and that what kind of parameter it is, and in which parameter group it is placed. You can see these things here. Okay, come back to this tab again. Here we also have this option, include link files. And we have it in Revit as well. That's for when you link something in your project. And if you choose this option, those parameters related to your linked file are also shown here. And in fact, those elements and parameters that are for your linked file are also included when you choose this option. Here, there is also this hide unchecked categories. And if you choose it, you cannot see the other categories. And if you choose this, all the categories are chosen. I don't suggest that in this tab you choose several categories at the same time, because some of these categories have some common shared parameters, and when two categories have the one shared parameter, for example, imagine in my previous project, and here I open SheetLink again, and then, for example, for doors category, And walls, I want to export these two categories. Here I say I want its width. I want the width of the door because the width of the wall is not important. I want the width of the door, but I have chosen two categories, right? It shows me all the parameters that are related to these two categories. Pay attention, these parameters that are here, some of them are for door and some of them are for wall. And you cannot specify really which one is for which. And that's why I suggest that you export them separately so that they won't mix up like that. And here I choose base constraint, that is, that is for the wall. That is not a very unclear thing, but some of them are not really easy to distinguish. I also choose level. What else? Okay, so sill height is for the door. And also I choose one of these read-onlys. I click on preview edit here. And when you enter this tab, well, you can see that you have two sheets. You have a door sheet and a wall sheet. Is that right? And this one is the instruction sheet that we have it for all the categories. Now here, well, it shows me the width of the door for different elements. But I didn't want it to show me the width for the wall as well. I really didn't need it to do that. For example, base constraint is not something that we have for wall and door. But width is a common thing for the door and the wall. And you cannot choose that you want the width for the door categories, but not for the wall category. It shows you both, even if you don't want it. And if you don't want it, you have to hide it. But I don't really suggest that you choose several categories at the same time, because here choosing parameters will get really hard for you. And in your schedule, it will show you those things that you don't want to see. So that's it. In the instructions section, we have such a thing as a note that is telling you what we have already discussed. It says if you want to change some amount in your type parameter, be careful, that amount will change for all the elements that have that type. Why does it say that? That's because of the thing that we discussed, that if you change something here in your type ID, it is true that it will change for that type in your project, but in the schedule it will not show you. Here it is telling you that point, and you have to pay attention to it. So that's the model category tab that we discussed its options together. And all the things that we have discussed here are also true for annotation categories. You here only have different categories, but as you see, its options are the same. In next sessions, we will talk about different tabs and we discuss some points. The previous session, we get introduced to export by type ID, and we talked about it exclusively. I want to give you another example of export by type ID, but in a different way. Here I open SheetLink. Before that, let me explain something. See, these walls that are here, these four walls, have the same type. That's W01. So I wrote it here. This is 1. And the orange walls that we have here are W02. So here we have two different types of walls. In the previous session, we had this example and we talked about its element ID and type ID. We said that these are two types. For this project, we have two types, but we have 8 element IDs. Here we have 8 elements. If I choose this, you can see that we have 8 walls here. Is that right? Okay. Let's come back to SheetLink plugin. This time I want to do something else. I say my category is wall. I sort these as well. And here, from down here, from read-only parameters, here I choose type ID. Is that right? So I don't choose export by type ID anymore. I will choose it from among the parameters. Now let's choose another thing here as well. For example, we choose family and type here. Exactly that which if you choose export by type ID, it gives it to you. Okay, let's choose some other parameters. For example, here, we choose base constraint and we choose its top here. Is that right? So here we have 4 parameters. I get a preview edit from these. Okay, now look at here. Let me sort it out a little bit first. Make it smaller. Alright, here we also have element ID. Because when we were in the model categories tab, we didn't tick this on. We didn't choose this export by type ID, that it categorizes based on the type of the element for us. We chose type ID from among the parameters. And when you don't tick this export by type ID, it also shows you element ID. But because you have also chosen the type ID element, here it shows us the type ID parameter as well. And we chose family and type ourselves. Is that right? Okay, here based on what we said, we are going to have 2 type IDs. Why? Because we have 2 types of walls in this project. So as a result, we have to have 2 type IDs. Here, I take a look. We have to have 2 numbers here. Is that right? One of them is 1588,900. That is from there to here. One of them is 1589,021. You can see we have 2 type IDs. Now, how many element IDs should we have? Exactly 8. Here I take a look. The numbers of element IDs must be different because each element has an ID special to itself. And you can see that it has happened here as well. So here we have 8 element IDs and 2 type IDs. But the difference between this and that method when you choose the tick of export by type ID is that it shows the type IDs again one by one to you. In fact, for each of these walls that we have here, it shows its element ID, its type ID, and the other parameters that you have chosen yourself. But when you choose this tick, it will show these parameters just for one type. And as we talked about it in last session, we will not have access to instant parameters because we are working based on type ID. So this is another method that you can have type ID. But for the times that you want to categorize your elements based on their type and make some changes into their type parameters, I suggest that you use this method of export by type ID so that we have a kind of organized sorting based on the types of your elements. And also we can make some changes to their types as well. But this is a kind of method that you can have type ID and element ID at the same time. All right. Let's talk about other tabs that we have. The next tab that we have here is annotation categories. That is exactly like the model tab, but the difference is that it's only for the 2-dimensional elements of your project. It means all you could do in a model tab, you can exactly do the same in here, but for 2-dimensional elements. Like all the tags that you use in your project, like room tag, door tag, wall tag, all tags that you use are 2-dimensional. They are not clear in 3 dimensions. Or for example, levels like grids, like a scope box. These are 2-dimensional elements. For example, texts. If you want to export your 2-dimensional elements, or you want to check them and change some of its parameters, you have to use this tab. Now let me give you an example. Here we have 2 texts, but both of them are one type. Alright, so I duplicate this one and then I rename it as T01. I change its text size to 12. Then I bold it. And then I set its font on something different. For example, here I set its font on this. Alright, I choose this and then I get a duplicate from this as well. And I rename it as T02. I change its size to 15. And then I turn on its underline. And then I keep the font. I don't change it. I drag it this way. Okay, I get a copy and then I drag it to here. I want to have more types. I name it T3. I resize it to 7. I don't make it bold. And here I give it another font. For example, this one. This one is not really good. Another one. For example, this. It's okay. I do the same things to this one as well. I name it T04. I resize it to 4.5. I don't want it to be bold. I want it to be italic, like this. Alright, here we have 4 texts, and each one has a different type. For example, if I get a copy of this and put it here, and get a copy from this one and put it there, okay, another time, and then again I get a copy from this and I put it there and there, for example. Okay, here we have several texts, but how many types did we have? We had 4 types: T01, T02, T03, and T04. We have 4 text types. Okay, here in SheetLink plugin, I set it on active view so that it only functions for this view. And here I choose text note category, and I also tick on export by type ID. First, I want to show you something. Let's see how many types we have. Here I say I want text font, text size, bold, italic, and underline. Is that right? So I get a preview from it. And then I organize it a little bit so that we can see the whole schedule here. All right, great. Okay, now as you see, here we have 4 types from T01 to T04. So naturally, we also have 4 type IDs. Can you see? Now here it also says that this is the text font for T01 type. Its text size is 12. It is bold and it doesn't have italic and underline. But for example, for T02, its text size is 15. It's not either italic or bold, but it has the underline. All right, again, I come back to annotation tab and then tick off export by type ID. I sort this out and then I put them here. I say I want its family and type, its type ID, and I also want its bold, italic, and underline, and I want its text size and text font. And then I get a preview again. As we talked about it, it also shows element ID too, but it categorizes it based on element ID. It doesn't categorize it based on type ID because I have chosen type ID myself as a parameter. Okay, here again it shows us that we have 4 type, but how many element ID do we have? 8 element IDs. As you can see here as well, if I choose this and choose filter and only choose text notes, we have 8 texts here. So as a result, we also have 8 element IDs. and it has divided them based on their element IDs. For example, it says this element ID, its family type is this one, its type ID is this one, it's bold, it's not italic, it's not underlined, and that's its text size. Now here, I change its text size from 12 to 13. Is that right? Which one did I change to 13? T01. Text size is among type parameters. And here I have chosen all its type parameters. So all my T01, their text size must change to 13. Here I choose Update Model, and I come back here. My T01 is this one. I come to its edit type, and as you see, its text size is changed to 13. I also select all here so that you can see it. These are T01, that both of them, because we have made changes into their type parameter, the changes have been made to both of them. But when I come back to the schedule, I have changed a type parameter for my T01s. But look at the fourth row. This is T01 as well, but its text size parameter has not been updated. This is exactly what we talked about last session. So for example, you have to choose this and drag this downwards so that these changes are made for your schedule as well. If you want to make changes into the text size parameter of the text that you have created, it's better for you to choose Export by Type ID, and then here get a preview from it. And say, for example, for T01, I want my font to change from 13 to 16. I choose Update here, then I come back here, and this changes to 16. This is a little bit easier. You don't have to make these changes into your schedule as well. So this is Annotation Categories tab.